seasoners, and welcome to the 4th anniversary episode of my first season. What began as a humble podcast in a closet, and is still recorded in a closet, has grown into something I'm proud to share with you today. We have an extraordinary guest joining us today for our 4th year. My guest has 2 daughters, Kyla, who is currently pursuing an MBA at Pepperdine University and is engaged to be married in June of 2025. Congratulations, Kyla. Her other daughter, Carly, appeared on the podcast back in August 2022 and is the owner of the clothing brand Brooklyn Grace. It is now my guest's turn to share her incredible story. She worked for Club Med from 1983 to 1991, starting her journey as a yoga and archery geo at Club Med Eleuthera. Her connection to Club Med began as a college graduation gift, a trip to Club Med Playa Blanca in 1981 that would change her life. In 1984, she met her future husband at Sonora Bay, and over the years, she worked at numerous resorts around the globe. Today, she is the CEO and executive producer of D. Ellen Miller Productions, a company dedicated to creating TV and film content that entertains, educates, and promotes social awareness in our dynamic, multicultural world. Originally from Los Angeles and now calling Seattle home, please join me in giving a very warm welcome to the one and only Dru Miller. Hey, Dru, how are you?
Hi, everybody. I'm doing great, and it's so great to be here this morning. Thank you so much for having me, Greg.
Well, you know what? The 4th year anniversary called for a very special guest. Thank gosh you said yes to me, because it would have crushed me if you said no. So thank you. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Just so you know, I'm always very nervous to speak. Please take that into consideration.
We will. Like I said, we're just 2 XGOs talking about the good old days. You know, we have a lot to talk about, so I think we should jump in right now. Let's start with the, college graduation gift. So where did you go to school?
So I actually went to Arizona State for a couple of years and then transferred back to Cal State University at Northridge, where I graduated in 81.
And may I ask what you're studying? I only ask because I'm I work in a university in Montreal. So I was just curious what people study.
Oh, I studied rehabilitation therapy and became a therapist in a spinal cord injured and head trauma unit at Northridge Hospital in California, in Los Angeles.
Wow, I feel bad now. I'm only taking English literature and you're saving the world. Okay, that sounds about right. All right, okay. And now, who got you the graduation gift to Playa?
My dad had gone to Club Med Playa Blanca a couple times, actually, in the mid to late 70s. And when he raved about it. And when I said, I would love to go for my college graduation, he wasn't real keen on it, mind you. But he and my mom got together. They were divorced, and they got me a week and a set of luggage for my college graduation gift.
So you had no idea basically what you're walking into, right? You'd never been before?
Nope, I had never been before. But back then, they also used to do many, many commercials on television, especially in the LA area. It was the, antidote to civilization back then, if anybody remembers that.
Yeah, those ads, I think they got a lot of us, right? Like we saw these ads.
Oh, yeah.
Especially here in Montreal. They always came out in the winter. So yeah, they pretty much had me. So you go there, you have a blast. Do you apply right away, or does some time pass before you say, hey, you know what? I'm finished my studies. I'd like to try that.
Well, in a nutshell, I was there and I used to take the aerobics every day, which was something that I was experienced in working my way through college. And they asked me to stay. And I had this wonderful position waiting for me back in Los Angeles that I had made a commitment to, and I just didn't feel comfortable. However, I wanted to very desperately to stay, but I did leave. And then after about 2 years of working in the rehab industry, I thought, I want to give it a go. I want to travel, and I'm going to apply. And that's what I did.
Okay. Now, do you have a phone interview or was it in person?
So back then, you had to send your resume and a photo of yourself and, do the whole application process. And then you'd get a call if they were interested, and they'd set up an in-person interview at various locations throughout the country, whichever one was geographically, closer to your residence. And so mine was in Los Angeles down by the airport. And my interviewer was Jeff Binans. Some of the old school Club Med Geos would definitely know who he is and was. And he made me feel very comfortable. And the next thing I knew, I got the position. I got a letter in the mail telling me that I was hired and I was going to Eleuthera for a stage, which was like a training, and they kind of tested you. So you didn't really have the job. You had to pass a test back then. It was called a stage in French. And I had no idea what the heck I was doing. But they did say, and just in case you pass the stage, please pack for 6 months. So we didn't even have rolling suitcases back then. So I had like 4 huge duffels, and it was quite humorous.
And when you saw you were going to Eleuthera, were you like me and said, "What's Eleuthera?" Because I'd never seen that name, growing up.
Right. I probably got out the encyclopedia and looked it up.
Oh yeah, these kids today have no idea what it was like, right? You just couldn't Google something; you had to look it up at the library.
100%. Yeah. But,
So
my attitude at the time was also like, oh, well, what do I have to lose? It's a few weeks in the Bahamas.
right? Okay. What do you remember? Do you remember anything about arriving? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but did you arrive in the nighttime? Did you lose any of your luggage? Was anyone there to greet you?
When we arrived there, yes, I had arrived with quite a few people actually that I met at LAX, which was kind of ironic. And, we all looked about the same age and we started chatting. And so we arrived together and no one had any idea what to expect. And all the VIPs were there and, the bigwigs, and they had it all scheduled. You got a schedule, you got a roommate. I still remember my roommate's name. I didn't keep in touch with her, but she also was in the yoga archery program. Yeah, it was just something that, other than going to Club Med at Playa Blanca for a week on vacation, this was a whole different gamut. And the club was still open. So you still had to act as the geo had to act back in that day and socialize. And you were tested on all those components of your personality and your demeanor and, your socialization skills and all that. So it was interesting. It was exhausting, but it was interesting.
For your first, real season at Club Med, full season, were you happy, surprised that you were going back to Playa since you had been there in 81 as a GM? What were you thinking when you saw you were going to Playa?
When I got my affectation that I was going to Playa Blanca, I was absolutely ecstatic because even to this day, it was one of my favorite villages. It was just so unique in every sense of the word. And you couldn't really go out anywhere at night because there was nothing around for miles. So you got so close with the Geo team and so close with the GMs as well. And so that was very unique. There was really like nowhere to go.
No, you're right about Playa. I think everyone who worked there says the same thing, right?
It was magical. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
All right. So there you do a full 6 months. Does it close for rainy season or does it stay open back then?
Oh no, it was open. It was beautiful. I was there winter 83, 84. It was beautiful. I actually met Howard Macaulay there. He was I think it might have been his third season. I'm not sure. He was a sailing geo. So we were on the sports team together.
Oh, really? So you and Howard McCarley,
Yeah.
same village. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Way back when.
Okay. Did you get any earthquakes when you were there?
Nope. No earthquakes.
Okay,
Had my
good.
share of those in Los Angeles.
Okay. That's right. All right. After Playa, they send you to Guadeloupe with Jean-Pierre Levrier. You're still doing aerobics and archery this time, I guess.
That's correct.
And I would like to get to 84, 85 Sonora because I mentioned in your intro you meet your future husband here. So I do love interviewing, ex-geo couples because I'd like to know what like first impressions. So can you tell me like when you saw him, was it love at first sight? Was it like, oh, I don't want anything to do with this guy? What was it?
This is an interesting story because I had arrived, I had done the whole summer season in Guadeloupe at Fort Royal and, had a relationship in the village at that time. And he was sent off somewhere and I was sent to Sonora Bay in Guaymas. And anyways, I arrived in the village a little bit later because I had to go to Connecticut to do a stage for Club Med for fitness because Sonora Bay was one of the first clubs to have like a whole fitness center. Anyways, I arrived there, and so I'm about a week or two later than most of the other geos. I arrived like maybe the first week of November or last week of October or something. And back then we had actual seasons, if you remember, Greg. And so I saw Steve from across the pool. They were doing like, remember in the day where you do water skiing in the pool for the sports demonstrations and you'd pull the skier across the swimming pool? Do you remember
Yes.
that?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Sure do.
So he was doing that. And I kind of saw him and I thought, wow, good looking guy,
Well,
right? That's all
excuse me,
about.
Drew. I just want to interject. If I'm not wrong, to give the listeners an idea, he looked like Tom Selleck, right? That's how I picture him, like the
Oh,
tall,
yeah.
good-looking mustache. So just so listeners know, he's like, he could be Tom Selleck's brother, from what I.
He could be Tom
Okay,
Selleck's brother.
yeah, okay. So
Yeah.
please continue.
Thank you. So I, see him from across the pool and I go, oh, wow, that guy's really good looking. And in my head, growing up in Southern California and hanging out at Malibu and all the other, beachy type of atmosphere and environment that I was exposed to in my teenage years and young adult, I thought, oh, he's got to be, a jerk, just like all the other really good looking guys. So in my head, I had him labeled already as a jerk, right? So, anyways, I'm just going to kind of make a very long story short, but apparently he had seen me too, which I will let him explain to you when he has his podcast with you as well. I wanted nothing to do with him. I was always very polite and very nice, but whenever he would ask me, like, do you want to dance? Can I get you a glass of wine? I wanted nothing to do with him, but I was always very polite. Well, we ended up being partners in the French Can for one of the big shows. He was very kind and very nice, but I was still very hesitant because I just didn't, I knew Club Med. It wasn't my first rodeo. I'd circled the block a couple times and just didn't want to go that direction. I didn't want to get hurt, obviously. And so, anyways, he proved me wrong. I mean, one day we were walking back from the nightclub and he actually said, is there something about me that you don't like? And I said, well, I don't really know you that well, but you know what? You're really good looking and you're probably a jerk like all the rest of them. And I don't want anything to do with it. And he goes, well, why don't you let me prove you wrong? I go, all right, give it a whirl. And he did. And he did. So we ended up together that whole season. Yeah, we will be married 39 years this May.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow. Yeah, if I had a dime for every time a woman said that to me in Club Med about being good looking and a jerk, I'd be rich. No. So okay, so it was really the French can. This is interesting because most water ski geos usually ask them if, like, I thought he would have asked you, would you like to do the brouette with me? And if you remember the brouette, okay.
I did that also.
Oh, okay. Oh, really? And still nothing? Wow. Okay, you're pretty good. Okay.
That was in Turks. I was pregnant, didn't know it. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. All right. So I guess love was found in Sonora Bay, right? And
Yes. And actually, to interject for one moment, when he said, let me prove you wrong, he took it so slow, Greg, that I started to really like him. So I was kind of ready for that next step, if you know what I mean. And he was just moving really slow, like purposely, it was quite cute till I finally said to him one night, hey.
Yeah. Oh yeah. My man, Steve, my man, you knew what you're doing. Good on you.
Right. He played his cards correctly.
Well, I'm curious because you go to Wengen, which is Switzerland, right? And you become a choreographer.
Yes.
So how do you make the leap from, aerobics, archery, yoga to choreographer? How does that happen?
In Sonora Bay, we were with Michel Verdure and his wife at the time, Bianca. And Bianca was an amazing choreographer and stage manager. I did all the shows, so I knew all her shows. And she was pregnant with Samantha, their daughter. They were going to Wengen and they asked me to join them. And she asked me to come as choreographer because she would not be able to do it, having just had a baby and everything like that, an infant. She kind of trained me and away I went. So that was my first season.
Were you worried at all? Like, because you have to deal with bozo, geos like me that probably don't want to be there rehearsing or have two left feet. So did you think about that at all? Okay.
I did. I was very, very nervous about doing it because I had never done it before. So a first time for anything is nerve wracking. And also, everybody there spoke French and my French was very, very minimal at that time. And fortunately, I had a good friend that was also there that had been in Sonora Bay with us as well. And she was from Toronto. So she spoke both languages fairly well. English was her first language, but she was able to translate for me. So that made it, but it was a great geo team. It was so multicultural and it was awesome.
And Michel Verdure was your chief of village, correct?
Yep. He was our CDV. Yep. I did go first to Corfu. I met Steve there. I was there for a month, had no idea what to expect. And so quickly, I'll tell you about my arrival there. First of all, I missed my flight from Athens because of whatever. I missed my flight. So he was waiting for me in Corfu. And, there's no cell phones, there's no form of communication, nothing. And I missed my flight from Athens. So he's waiting, 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 waiting. Finally, I have to spend the night in Athens. I get on a plane the next morning. I arrive in Corfu. I take a taxi to Club Med. And in Corfu, when they did the arrivals, they would do them by boat. The big, huge boats with all the GMs would come across the bay. And there was like 16, I think, water ski boats in Corfu, and they'd have like 12 or 14 of them out there with a girl in the boat holding a pario over her head, the driver, and 3 skiers. They'd use GMs also. They did different, patterns and everything, bringing these GMs to shore. So I get there and I go down to the beach, and we're not engaged yet, and we're just dating, and I'm sitting there and I see Steve in the boat, and then of course the girl that's holding up the pario above her head in the passenger seat, they face the skier and the driver faces the direction in which they're going, and the girls are topless and the waves are getting larger and larger and larger. It's getting very bouncy, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, he's exposed to all this. How does he even focus on his driving? That was my first introduction to meeting him at Corfu.
And those are
So,
called 80s problems, right? Okay.
oh my gosh, right? And I said,
Wow.
how do you focus on your driving skills? He goes, I don't even look, whatever.
Yeah. Whatever. Okay. Sorry. I never heard that story before. That's a good one. Okay.
Quite funny.
All right. I am interested in your next season because I believe you have a pretty wild story to tell us about Haiti, right? With Chef de Village Mary Belili. And here you go back to
Yeah,
aerobics
that
and
was
archery.
wild.
So what the heck happened in Haiti, Dru?
A lot. But can I tell you how Steve proposed real quick? Because
Oh,
it's quite
yeah.
unique.
Yeah, please,
Okay.
please.
Okay, so we're going to go back to he's in Corfu, I'm in Vengen. Our only form of communication at this point was telex. There was not even a fax yet. So we'd telex each other, and we'd make an appointment for a phone call. Half the time when I'd go wait by the phone or he'd go wait by the phone, you couldn't even get through back then. You just, whatever. So he mailed me this big envelope with like a poster board in it that was folded. And when you open up the poster board, there was like almost looked like a crossword puzzle or word search type game. And he said, okay, for the next 10 weeks that we're apart, every, a few times a week, I'm going to send you some letters of the alphabet, and you have to try to guess what I'm saying to you. And so I would get like one letter, I'd get a T, or I'd get an R and an A or whatever. And, I'd put him out. I have no idea what he's saying. Finally, about 6 to 8 weeks into the game, I'm sitting there, it's laying on my bed, and all I went, holy crap, he's asking me to marry him. And so in this game, he's proposing, and I run downstairs to the gestionnaire's office to send a telex, and it said, I still have the telex, by the way. Yes, 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 I will marry you. And that's how he proposed, and that's how I answered.
This is like right out of a rom-com. Like, I can't believe this hasn't been done yet. This is amazing to, the creativity to think of that. And this took place over weeks, right? Or days that you would get mailed a different letter.
Oh yeah, it took me about 6 to 8 weeks to actually figure out what the letters placement needed to go to figure out what was, you know,
If you were better
actually
at
being written on this game. Yeah.
if you were better at Wheel of Fortune, you probably would have solved it in the first try, right? I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. Now,
Yeah. Or crossword puzzles.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So that was kind
yeah.
of unique. Yes. And then we were able to go together the next season because we were engaged, and that's when we went to Haiti. So
Well,
that's
yeah,
yeah.
this proposal is so wild and nice and beautiful that I don't know if people are listening going like Steve just like we all got to take it up a notch now is what I feel from this proposal. Like I think I was just going to get down on one knee and that was it. But your man, wow, next level stuff.
Yeah, and I do have the game still. It's in our wedding album. I folded it and it's in there.
Really?
So
Oh,
yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
Wow.
it's a cute keepsake. Hmm.
The more you keep talking about Steve, Dru, I think I'm falling in love with him right now, to be honest with you. Boy, oh boy.
Well,
Okay.
it's not always easy, Greg. Let me tell you.
Yeah, but he's so handsome. Okay.
Doesn't matter.
Okay. I used to think that made up for a lot. It's not.
No,
Okay.
maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit.
Okay. All right. Great story. Let's get back to Haiti because we recently had Steve Riley on and he mentioned something of what what happened, but I don't think you were both there at the same time.
Yes, we were.
Oh, you were? Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
excellent.
we were with Steve. I think it was Steve's first season in Haiti.
Oh, that's right. Well, tell me what you remember.
It was a great village. Mary Belilli was our CDV, and his girlfriend at the time, I want to say her name was, I can't remember right now. But anyways, he really liked Steve and I. And I think he also liked Steve Riley a lot. We were hard workers and really good GOs.
The chief of village was nutty. Is that what you're saying?
He was a bit nutty. He
Okay.
was a bit nutty.
But he liked to have fun, right? He like you go to one chief of village who's very calm, and then next thing you know, you're with a chief going, "Wow, my old chief didn't do that."
Oh,
So he was into animation and all that stuff, right?
he was very much into animation. But just to give you an example, and Steve Riley might have told you this, like it was like 9:45. The show was supposed to start at 10. Audience is all there, and I felt so sorry for the stage manager. It was not me, and he walks backstage. He takes his hand and he wipes off all the makeup off the counters onto the floor, like in one big sweep, if you could visualize that. And then he says, I changed the show. I decide we don't do this show. It's 9:45. Everyone's in costume. Everyone's makeup is on. Stage manager's looking at him. We have the set decor because back then it wasn't electronic. It was actual painting of sets. But I don't know. The Geo team got super close there, I think, because of it. Like we had to stick together. It was such a bonded team. And then on February 6th, 1986, there was a military and governmental coup. And it was like a war on the island. And so it was really frightening. And of course, everybody in the States, including my mother, was watching the news. I'm trying to plan my wedding, which was going to be that May. And she's freaking out that I'm not going to ever make it back. Yeah. So we had a whole evacuation of the island. And it was quite interesting and quite frightening. And the United States would not come in to get us, because politically it would not be a good move for them or something. So Canada sent Air Canada in to come get us.
Montreal, right? You landed in Montreal, I think?
Yes, we landed in Montreal, and Steve had to stay back in Haiti because he was the chief of service. So yeah, I was with Steve Riley and a whole group of us, but it was the first time being at the airport in Port-au-Prince in Haiti. And they'd come over the loudspeaker and they say, okay, all Americans to the back of the line, all Canadians to the front of the line. We're like we were just mortified at that one. We had never heard that before.
Yes, usually it's the other way around.
Wow. Exactly. Okay. Yeah.
Nice.
And they were wonderful. Air Canada was amazing. It was a 747 because there was a lot of people on the island. It just wasn't Club Med. There was a lot of people on the island trying to get out. They all were evacuated up to Montreal. Club Med put us all up at a Hilton. The plane was just one big party because they opened the bar on the airplane. And,
What? That doesn't sound like us.
Yeah. And then we all stayed at the Hilton. And then they were pretty organized. Club Med was actually, everybody got their information of what time their flight was the next day, like a big, once again, a big like gunshot, and everybody went to a different location. Some people flew to Dallas, some people flew to LA, some people, it was just wherever you were, and they arranged that. So when I got back to LA, I missed Steve so much. So 2 weeks later, things had calmed down. He goes, yeah, you should come back. So I went back and I stayed with him. There was nobody in the village, not a GM. It was just chief of services and the maintenance team. And we had access to the water ski boats and, all the sports equipment. So we just played tennis and water skied and had great food. And it was like our honeymoon.
So let me get this straight. You went back to Haiti roughly 2 weeks after being evacuated?
2 or 3 weeks. I went home.
Wow.
I went home. I finished planning my wedding with my mom and my sister, got everything, got our ducks in a row, and boom, I hopped on another plane and went back.
Well, it sounds like, yeah, you had like a pre-honeymoon there because, that's always been my dream, like no one's in the village and I can play the sports I want.
Exactly. No, it was a beautiful, beautiful village. It was called Magic Isle, if you remember that.
Yes. And where is the wedding to take place? Have you settled on a location?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We got married in Los Angeles at a JW Marriott, and was a lovely wedding, and everyone's like, where are you going to go on your honeymoon? You've been all over the world, you know? So we ended up just really not wanting to do anything. So we just went down to Cabo for 6 days and chilled and played games on the beach. And Steve would play the pool games around the pool and win me a free
Oh,
cocktail.
no.
I
Okay.
get a free
Okay,
cocktail. Yeah.
Steve, you just went down a notch here with me. Okay. No,
Yeah.
you're on
There
vacation.
you
Don't
go.
do pool games. But let me ask you, at your reception, did you have like a lot of crazy sign music playing, like so people could line dance, or no, not at all?
Yeah, we did a little bit of that. And there was actually, like I was thinking about this morning, Greg, because I was remembering there was some XGOs that came to my wedding. And a guy named Stefan, he was in Playa with us, actually. I mean, there was a few, what I remember, if I go back into the gray matter in my brain, I hadn't thought about that until, you and I had chatted about a variety of things. And so no, it was wonderful. Steve's best man was with us when we met in Club Med at Sonora Bay. His name's Brad Anderson. He threw Steve a bachelor party. His dad was the head trainer for the Raiders at the time. And so there was a bunch of football players at Steve's bachelor party and apparently fed him way too many Long Island iced teas.
Well, as long as that girl with the Pario from Corfu wasn't at this party, we're good. Okay.
Exactly. Exactly. I was just going to mention one other thing when you say Pario, having worked from 83 to almost 92 in the Club Med villages, we were there during the transition of, barefoot, the Pario, the flower in your hair was your daily outfit to like a uniform with a name tag.
This starts to happen around this time, is what you're saying, right?
It starts to happen.
Like late 80s, I guess.
Yes, exactly. But we can move on from Hades.
Well, yeah. Well, I was curious how now you do, like, it seems like you've done it all. So now, around Sandpiper, around 87, Chief of Village Ben Buzina, you work in the Annex restaurant. How does that happen?
Well, I had to do whatever it took to stay together in the same village. And by this time we were married. And some of the CDVs actually like to have a couple married couples because they're just a little bit more grounded, generally. I did Annex Restaurant, but halfway through the season, I ended up taking over as chief hostess. That's what I did then. Steve was chief of water ski at that time, I think.
Okay. He hadn't become chief of sports yet, right?
No, summer 88.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, so Turks and Caicos,
yep.
CDV Michel Delamare, and so you're chief hostess, but something else also happens in this village, correct? Which
yes, towards the end of the season, yes.
Which refers to, I mentioned your daughter in the intro, how she was my guest in August 2022. So what happens this season?
Well, we decided we'd been married I guess, let's see, this is 88. We'd been married a little over 2 years, and we decided that we wanted to, have a baby. We were in Turks and Caicos, and I was always very in tune to my body and what I was feeling. And so one day, Steve used to do his rounds as chief of sports. He's walking down the beach. I knew it was the right time to get pregnant. I don't know if I can say all this on air, but I knew I was ovulating. And so I literally ran down the beach, and he was so busy, right? Because it's first season as chief of sports. And I said, Steve, do you have 15 minutes? Anyways, long story short.
15,
yeah.
What? Okay. Yeah. No, this is fine. Yeah. This is fine. No, this is fine to talk about because this is an amazing story. Okay.
And so I just, I said, I'm ovulating, come on, let's go. And we literally ran back to the room, and I got pregnant with Carly.
So help me gosh, if he said, no, honey, I have to finish the pool game, I was coming over to where you are right now and kicking his butt. Okay. We all dream about that moment when we're on the mic as a chief of sport, hey, I need you now.
Yes. Okay. So unbeknownst to me, which we will get to, but unbeknownst to me, we are in Turks and Caicos at my oldest daughter's wedding to Casey, and he's doing the father of the bride speech, and he reiterates that story in front of everybody at the wedding, and I had no idea he was going to do that.
Nice. Well, this might be, since you brought it up, this might be a good moment for any new listeners. So as I mentioned, I had your daughter on as a guest in 2022, and I had Boone, very famous water ski GO. Maybe you can just take a moment to tell us how Boone and your daughter are related. How did this story, and your husband, Steve, because he figures prominently in this story. So if you wouldn't mind giving us a recap of how this all connects.
Absolutely. So I'm going to try and make it as quick as I can. So when Steve and I eventually did stop working for Club Med, we still helped them out as for doing interviews in various places. We'd go up to Vancouver because we're only, an hour and a half south of Vancouver, and or we'd go to Seattle and we'd do interviews, and Steve would do sports and I would do like hostesses or aerobics instructors. We would get credit. So we'd each get like $20 an hour towards a trip. Well, we were just starting out in life, and that was really helpful to continue to go to Club Med vacations for us. We're up in Vancouver, actually, and Steve is the one that interviewed, we call him Joe, but Boone, that interviewed Boone. He and Boone ended up going to the same university, had the same professors, and were both really into water skiing. So they just hit it off completely. And after the interview, Steve goes, "That guy's going to be great." Steve made a call and said, "Thumbs up, 5-star, got to hire this guy." And so they did. And his first season actually was Sonora Bay, ironically, and where Steve and I met. But anyways, fast forward, Harley, our daughter, after she graduated from the University of Washington and was in grad school, decided to take a break and go also work for Club Med. And she was going the route of trying to do mini club because she had nannied all through college for extra money. But she also had her international boating license, and her father, being a national water skier and now currently a world champion, she was very good at boat driving. So when they saw that she had an international boat license, Club Med called her immediately and said, basically, could you be in Cancun tomorrow? So, she dropped what she was doing and she left to go do her first season in Cancun. And Casey, Boone's brother, Casey Dell, the position was called Chief of Beach in Cancun, but he'd help out with water ski sometime. He'd oversee it. They started talking, and then apparently Casey was talking to his brother Boone, and Casey said, "Yeah, this girl from the Seattle area, really cool gal, arrived. Apparently her dad's some big water skier." And they put two and two together, and Boone asked Casey if her last name was Miller, and Casey said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Ask her if her dad is Steve Miller." Did. Answer was yes. Got back to Boone. "Oh my God, he hired me. He's great." And then Casey and Carly just became really good friends, like best friends actually, during their first and maybe second season. And then they fell in love. And so they got married. Let's see, when did they get married? February of 2019. They got married in the Turks and Caicos Islands.
Where you got pregnant with?
Where she was conceived.
Wow, that is so
So it kind
wild.
of like a full circle. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And Boone actually was, the best man, and he told a funny speech about everything too. So there was just so much, our families just blended so beautifully. And Casey's mom and dad, Sharon and Kevin, are just wonderful. And we traveled together. In fact, we're all going to Club Med together in Cancun this May for Casey's 40th birthday celebration.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Wow. And a lot of XGOs are going also from their generation, which is kind of fun because Steve and I have our generation of XGOs that we travel with, and they have theirs. But we all get along great.
Sounds like you're having your own mini reunion. Nice.
We'll do that often. It's really fun.
Excellent. Well, thanks for sharing that one with us.
Of course.
Thank you. Okay, getting back. So we leave Turks, we go to Paradise Island. Now you're working here and you're still pregnant with Carly, right? At Paradise in 88, 89?
Yes, I am pregnant. We get there, I think, in like maybe late October. I'm due the end of June. And Steve is chief of sports. Dede Lantini was the CDV. I was chief hostess. And one of my very close girlfriends, whom I also worked with in Sandpiper, Kelly McCormick, she is one of my closest and dearest friends. I speak to her all the time. This was our second season together, and she used to like rub my tummy every day because we didn't know if it was a boy or girl. She'd just rub my tummy every day. So she still teases Carly about that to this day. But yeah, so I was pregnant the whole time in Paradise. It was a great team. Paradise was interesting. Big tennis, a huge tennis village. The club is kind of divided. It was over on the ocean side and then over on the bay side. I was there all the way through till the very beginning of my 8th month. Or end of my 7th month. But Steve was chief of sports. And one day I was about 7 months pregnant, and he comes walking in our room, and he says, "Elizabeth, the aerobics instructor, is sick. Is there any way you could teach?" And And I looked down at my belly and I go, well, I'll try, so when I taught the class, I basically just said, you know, if I stop, just you keep going, just do what I say, and they were all like, oh my gosh. And because I was I was thin, but I was just all basketball right in front. You couldn't tell I was pregnant from the back.
You didn't make a joke that you had too much at the buffet and you're here to work
No,
it off? No? Okay.
no,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
I should have though. You're
Yeah.
probably right.
Okay. Too much white chocolate bread. All right, here we
But
go.
anyways, yeah. So then I left. Yeah, I left and went home after that because I left to come to Washington. I wanted to have the baby here. And so Steve came home, but then he was needed in Guadeloupe. So he went back there in Guadeloupe with Michelle Delamar that summer, but he came home to have the baby. And then when she was 6 weeks old, we went back to Guadeloupe. But then I can't remember why we had to leave. Something happened and we had to leave, and we missed Hurricane Hugo by like a week.
Lucky.
So
lucky. That was a big one. That was a big one, right? If I recall.
That was a big one. Yeah. That was a big one. And then, and that was summer of 88.
Okay.
I'm trying, and I have to tell you, and I'm sure everybody feels the same way. When you go down memory lane like this, Greg, it's hard to remember everything. Like you forget the pattern, the sequence of where you were when and what season it was. You know what I mean?
Dru, like I told you, I have GOs that leave Club Med in 2024 and can't remember who their chief was. Okay. So, I interviewed.
So I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty well.
Right. We're talking like a year ago, and they're like, I can't remember who it was. So yes. So everyone, yeah. Trust me, I've been doing this 4 years now, and everyone's memory is the same. Trust me. as I make the joke, all ex-GOs have the memory of an elephant, a dead one. Okay, but don't worry about it. The years, they blend in. It's fine. What's more important are the stories that you're sharing with us here today. It doesn't matter the year. So you come home and have the baby, and I believe you take about a year off before you go back to Punta Cana.
Yes,
is that right?
Yes, we took about almost a year, not quite, but almost a year. Steve still went and did a couple interims because just, for even in the water ski or even, he went and did a couple interims, which I was fine with. And then when Carly was about 10 and a half months, we went to Punta Cana, which would have been summer of 90. Because Carly had her first birthday there and she learned to walk. So just to back up, the Delamars, Michelle and Christine and their two children, Leslie and Gregory, they're like our French family. We've been to their home many times. They've been to our home many times. And Christine knew I was pregnant before Steve because she was, Michelle's wife, and she'd always come and speak to me. We'd always have coffee together in the morning. And as a chief hostess, I always had that 9 to 1 o'clock shift, like most chief hostesses did at that time. Anyways, and then I was standing in the Palapa in Punta Cana when Carly was 11 and a half months old. And Carly was holding my leg, and I'm sitting there talking to Christine, and all of a sudden Carly just walks away. And it was Christine that said, oh my God, oh my gosh, look, she's walking, in her French accent. And so she learned to walk there and had her first birthday there. And we spent the whole summer there. I didn't have a contract, but I worked a lot. But wherever they needed me, I helped, whether it be arrivals or, teach aerobics. I was in every show still, of course. And so I had a nanny from, what was the name of the town right by Punta Cana? I can't think of it right now. I don't know why. But anyways, she would come every morning at 8:30 and stay till 11:30 at night. So it was perfect.
Nice.
Except for Sundays. Yeah, it was really nice.
And after the season, Steve goes to, does an interim chef de village in Turks and Caicos, right?
Yep, we go back there. And we get to live in the apartment, which was really nice. So Carly had her own bedroom. Yeah, we were there for a couple months, I think. And it was wonderful. It was great. It was a good interim. Everything went really successful. And ironically, guess who came to take his place as CDV?
Ooh.
For another interim? Michelle Delamar.
Oh, really? Okay.
So now Steve's CDV in Turks and Caicos, and Michelle comes in and has to wait for us to move out before he moves into the apartment that he lived in when Steve was chief of sports there. Yeah, full circle.
I should have asked you because you did Turks like at least twice. So do you have a JoJo story? I'm required by law to ask you if you have the JoJo dolphin story.
I do have a JoJo story.
Tell me.
Yes. So Well, okay, so I was pregnant with Carly, but early on. And our friends from Washington, from Seattle area, came and stayed with us for a while. And so my girlfriend Denise and I, we just got a snorkel and a mask and we went out. You know Turks, right?
Mm-hmm. First
Okay.
season.
So we went out. Yep. Oh, okay. We went out by the scuba pier and, they always had a lot of barnacles. So we went out like snorkeling just off the shore by the scuba pier. And then all of a sudden, I hear my girlfriend screaming because she sees the fin, not knowing it was JoJo. And she goes running into shore, and I'm still out there. And JoJo, he probably smelled I was pregnant or something like that. And he kept pushing me out to sea with his nose, like kept pushing me out to sea. And I was getting a little nervous, like, okay, I'm just going to be relaxed, and all this. But then one of the water ski Joes, Denise was screaming. He heard her screaming. He walked out on the dock and he jumped in to distract JoJo while I could run to shore or swim to shore.
Okay.
So that's what, but the funny stories is, and I'm sure many other Joes have talked about this, JoJo knew exactly when we were doing the water ski show.
Yeah.
And I used to do the bruette with Steve, and I used to do the flags. So every time when we start with the flags, we do a dock start. It never failed. Right when we were about to start, he would come and he'd jump right in front of us and we'd all fall. He knew. And then we did have a scuba instructor named Dean who was could train JoJo.
Yeah.
So we'd always have to come.
That's right. Yeah, he was also I think a marine biologist too. Yeah, I met him my first season, or he became one. Yeah, Dean Bernal. Yes, I remember him very well.
Yes. Yeah, he was a great guy. So we just, all right, Dean, water ski show at this time. Be there, get JoJo away from us.
Yeah, the dolphin wrangler. Okay.
Yeah, and then a funny story. So I used to do the bruette, and so Brian Cargyle. I don't know if you know Brian.
Yes, he was a guest on the show. Brian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, recent guest. Yeah, very recent guest.
Okay, he's a very good friend of ours. In fact, we just saw him last year. He used to MC the water ski show. So he'd always say when we do the bruette, here they go again, Dru and Steve reconsummating their marriage, And I didn't know he was saying this, but I heard about it. So he was a funny guy and he really made it quite entertaining. So yeah, fun times, just so many great memories. And Turks was a very, very, very special village, very special village for many reasons.
Okay, I'd like to take just a little step away from Club Med right now, Dru, to ask you about your production company that I mentioned in the intro. So can you tell me about it, please?
I would love to. Thank you for asking. Quite a few years ago, I kind of woke up one day and reinvented myself. I kind of grew up in the film industry to a certain extent, just having family members be stuntmen or actors or actresses or whatever. So I'd been around it quite a bit. Anyways, I had a few ideas in which some films I wanted to do. And I started with a couple situation comedies and game shows. And then I got into social impact. And that's where I've really had my focus the last probably 8 to 10 years. The name of my company is D for Dru, Ellen Miller Productions. It was very important that people know I am a woman, especially in Hollywood at that time when I started. So I used my first initial and my middle name Ellen and my last name Miller Productions. And you can Google me or look me up. And so I've had quite a few short films and documentaries that have been fairly successful. I've been to the Cannes Film Festival 2 or 3 times and won awards, which was quite an honor. I'm working on a new film now. In fact, my directors here were editing, called Rocks by the River. It's about aging out of the foster care system. I have a documentary, a true story about a woman that went missing with early onset Alzheimer's. I have a film dealing with severe autism. So yeah, I'd love for you to take a look. It's really rewarding. I go to quite a few film festivals. I do premieres and we speak at various events about our films, and hopefully we're providing awareness and education to the public about these different challenges that people face in life. That's my production company. I love doing it. Steve would say it's maybe kind of like a hobby, but made a few bucks.
It sounds also like it sounds like you'd be very busy at this hobby, right? This just editing alone, as you probably know
Oh
it's not
gosh.
does not fast, right?
No, Greg,
Yeah.
yeah, and especially when you've got audio and visual working together.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
I can't
Yeah,
imagine yeah, no, I have enough with the audio. I can't imagine doing both.
right. It's been an education, and I've had to educate myself in, a lot of different arenas where film is concerned. But I love it. It just gives me so much, just it fills me. It fulfills me. And I think I'm helping people, and that's always been so important to me, very important to me. I'm involved in a lot of charities also. I'm very fortunate that I can volunteer my time and, give back to the community. I've been very, very blessed. So I like to, pay it forward.
You're also involved in the Forever Geo Foundation, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I am. I was in Cancun last year with everybody and had a wonderful conversation with Angie. And I loved everything that it stood for. And she does so much on her own, and she's just the most remarkable young woman I've ever met. So I feel like I can help in certain ways. I've always had a knack for marketing, and that's where they were really kind of needing someone to step in. So another gal named Donna and myself, and then Angie, a guy that she just found a guy named Renato. He lives in San Diego, who I had a meeting with last week. He sounds fabulous. So, yeah, it's coming along, and I think that not everybody made the transition from Club Med to, I don't want to say normalcy, but back to society and life in general, as well as some others. So, and people run into hard times. And as a lot of us know, it wasn't easy, leaving Club Med after, quite a few years or a few seasons or whatever you did. It was like, I don't want to say fantasy island, but it was just such an amazing, amazing time of our life, an experience to have worked at Club Med, especially in the 80s.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, I started 94, but I wish I could have been there in the 80s for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Yeah.
was like I said, I run to an arrival and pull a flower off a tree and tie my sarong around my bathing suit as I ran down the stairs barefoot to meet a bus coming in. It was just very, very different until it was like in 91.
Yeah. Well, you guys have the greatest stories too. So, nothing could beat the 80s
Yeah.
Geo
Thank you.
stories.
Thank you. I was at the Cancun reunion last spring, and then there's a strong group of us. There's probably about 12 to 20 of us, ex-GOs, and then, of course, spouses or partners or whatever. We have gone on quite a few trips. We went this past October of 24, not to a Club Med, which was the first time we did not go to a Club Med. We went on a Windstar cruise to Tahiti, and there was four girls or three girls, anyways, that had worked at Maria. So it was so cool to go see Maria that is no longer there. It was cool, but it was actually heart wrenching, especially for the girls that had worked there.
Why? Because it was
Because
closed?
it's closed, and it's just dilapidated. It's just
Oh, okay.
dilapidated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
got it.
So that was really tough. But yeah, and then next October we're planning to do Punta Cana. A lot of people have never been there, and it's wonderful, wonderful village. And Steve and I actually did Misha's, the new one, also a couple of years ago. I don't know if anyone's done that, but it was very beautiful, very beautiful.
Who are some of these people that you're going on reunions with?
Okay, so one of the gals that actually I had hired her, she's an ex-GO, one of my closest girlfriends. I love her, Adrienne Solomon. She does all the organization for the trips for us. And she also did it for Carly's wedding. Carly and I thought we would be able to do it together, everybody arriving at different days in Turks from all different places. And Carly came over one day just crying, Mom, I just can't do this. So I called Adrienne, can you take it over? I got it. So she's just amazing as far as her arranging it. So do you remember Patricia Flores? She worked in the New York office, and she was also a GO in the
Yes.
villages for a while. She's involved in it. Janae Jones. It was Janae Mahig. Was Janae Jones. Now it's Janae Mahegan. She was a photographer forever and ever and ever in Club Med, and also was a GO in, I believe, Copper Mountain. DJ and Mike, a couple from Colorado. Kelly McCormick, who's one of my closest friends. She and her brother, Sean, they go on a lot of them also. My best friend, Debbie Goldstein, was a GO. She actually worked au pair for me in Turks and then went and did her own season in Martinique. She comes to a lot of them. Lori Tarbox, I don't know if you know Lori. Oh gosh, I
I know.
can't.
I know her name. Yeah, yeah, I do know. I do know who you're talking about. Yes.
So there's quite a few of us that get together, anywhere between 12 and 30, and with the extended, we call it the extended Geo family, you know.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Very
so
nice.
it's very cool, it's very fun. We're not as bad as some, but as an ex-Geo, when you go to vacation at Club Med, what's the first thing we critique?
I'm afraid to say. I'm afraid to say. What is it?
The Geo team.
Oh, okay. Yeah. How back in our day, da, 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 da,
Yeah, well,
yeah,
I mean, they're
yeah.
walking, they don't even lift their head from their phone while they're texting when they walk by you down the pathway. And oh my gosh, we weren't even allowed to wear sunglasses.
And we didn't even have phones.
I know.
We had telexes, whatever that was. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we had a telex. I remember Steve and Sandpiper did have a pager. Remember that?
Oh, really? Wow. Pager. And I guess when you wear a pager or a walkie-talkie, you gotta be very careful about getting thrown in the pool, as I
Yeah.
soon
Good
learned.
point.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
much so. Okay, Dru Miller. Oh, by the way, I told you Dru Miller is my favorite, best XGO name of all time. Okay, it's the
Oh,
coolest name, Dru Miller. It should be on handbags. It
thank
should be
you.
everywhere. Trust me, I love that.
Oh,
I
yeah. Well,
love your
maybe I
name.
need to
Okay,
start marketing it, right?
I don't want anything.
Thank you, Greg.
I don't
Yeah.
want any money. I just want the credit. Okay.
There you go.
All
But I
right.
just have to say thank you so
Yeah.
much for having me on your show.
Oh
I
well.
know I know I
No,
was really crazy busy there for a while, but
no, it's
you know,
fine.
yeah, one last comment or statement that I'd love to make is just that, Club Med is so special, and not only just by meeting my husband and having my children, and we continue to go on family Club Med vacations. Now we take my grandchildren and they all love it. it just it was just a life experience that I don't think could ever be replaced, just socially, culturally, every which way. It just, and meeting so many wonderful people, whether they were, of course, the GOs, but even the GMs that stand out in my mind, just quite remarkable. And we can talk and talk and talk forever about relationships, but when they say soul family and the GO family, it's really true. It's really true. I feel like there's a bond that was developed and is present amongst many of us, and I don't think you can replace that, especially in a work environment. So I feel like I have to thank Club Med and thank all the wonderful people that I've met, and thank you for having me, Greg. I really appreciate it.
Well, no, I thank you for being my fourth anniversary guest. Like I said, I started the podcast in a closet, still recording in the closet, but for better sound quality. And I never thought
Exactly.
I would get 4 years. I thought, it would be nice to do a year. So here we are 4 years later. So thank you to everyone who's ever listened or downloaded an episode. And thank you for saying yes, Dru, because I wanted a very special guest for this anniversary episode. So thank you so much.
You are very welcome. You are very welcome.
Well, everyone, that was the one, the only Dru Miller. And I'm going to let Dru take us out. And however you want to do it, your best DJ voice, Dru, if you want to thank our listeners, whatever you want to say, you can take us out.
Okay. Well, everybody, happy 2025. I wish you all the best of health, happiness, and don't forget, lots and lots of laughter. Life can be very short. Enjoy yourselves.
Dru Miller, everyone. We'll see y'all next week. Bye. Say bye, Dru.
Bye bye.